Good morning, Collective Kids.
And welcome to Sundays with Ziggy. I'm Margaret.
And I'm Abby.
And Ziggy must be loving that vacation because he is still on vacation.
Not coming back.
No, he told me he would come at the end of the month.
Oh.
So
He'll be back.
We'll see.
Hopefully.
I mean, he's enjoying time with his family.
Mm-hmm.
So, question for you. Because it's Easter weekend. It is my favorite time of the year. It's like Christmas for me, but not really. Just love all holidays. What Easter traditions did you have growing up?
We always had a little Easter egg hunt. My mom would hide Easter eggs all over the house, and my sister and I would go and find them. One Easter Sunday I got baptized at my old church, so that was a special one. Yeah.
Okay.
How about
Let's
you?
see. Easter traditions. I think for me, for Easter, we usually did a small Easter egg hunt, but we were usually at church, so it was usually whatever our church was doing at the time. But we would always go out to, we called him my Uncle Sam, but he was just like a really good family friend. And we used to go and ride his horses for Easter.
That's fun.
Yeah, it was super fun. I always got to ride Thunder.
Ooh, Thunder. Is he fast?
No. He got his name because he farted a lot.
Oh.
Yeah.
That kind of thunder.
He was a really big Clydesdale.
Wow.
That's fun.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so that's what we used to do growing up.
That's so fast. Thunder.
Fun fact, Thunder.
Oh.
This is my favorite. Okay.
Okay, as we're on to a new month, like you said,
Yes.
it's Easter, so we'll be reading through stories in both Colossians and John today. This is our month all about peace and proving that you care more about each other than winning an argument. So sometimes when we talk about peace, it can seem really easy, but then once we get into like a stressful situation, it becomes really hard sometimes. There's only one way to have real peace, and that's through God, who always has a plan to make peace with us. So let's check out this video and see what it means to have peace.
The Bible. It's 66 books of history, stories, letters, and poetry that fit together to form God's one big story. The epic adventure of how He created us and loves us so much that He made a way to rescue us. As we travel through the Bible, from Genesis to Revelation, we discover people who met God and found their lives changed forever. Now, for an amazing story. Inspired by the entire Bible.
In the beginning, God created a magnificent paradise, and everything in it was good. He created water and land and plants and trees and birds and fish and animals. And then, from the very dust of the earth, God created a man called Adam. He created a woman called Eve. They were the first two people on earth, made in God's image, living peacefully in paradise. Adam and Eve were friends with God, but then they made a terrible choice. God had given Adam and Eve one rule.
You must not eat the fruit from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. If you do, you will certainly die.
But the temptation was too great for Adam and Eve. They broke God's rule, and what was once a paradise became a broken world. People started telling lies.
It was the woman you put here with me. She made me eat it.
Brother fought against brother.
No!
Selfishness spread through generations. When there had been peace in the garden, now there was pain and sin and death separating people from their Creator. But God had a plan to make peace once again with the people He loved so much. Hundreds of years after Adam and Eve broke His rule, God chose a man named Abraham and said,
All nations on earth will be blessed because of you. Look up at the sky. Count the stars if you can. That's how many children will be born into your family.
So Abraham had a son, Isaac, and Isaac grew up to have 2 sons of his own, Jacob and Esau. And those 2 sons had children of their own. Jacob, who God renamed Israel, he himself had 12 sons. So God had given Abraham a huge family just like he promised. But God's people, the Israelites, were still lost and broken, separated from him. They still did not have peace. They didn't have peace when God rescued them from slavery in Egypt, when God led them through the Red Sea to escape their enemies.
Okay, great. But what are we supposed to eat out here in the desert? Sand?
The nation of Israel didn't have peace when God gave them a new law.
These commandments are hard. We want a king like all the other nations.
They didn't even get peace when God gave them a king.
The king's laws are no fair. We want a new God, like all the other nations.
Nope, nothing gave God's people lasting peace. They were still lost and broken and separated from God for thousands of years. But God had not forgotten the promise he made to Abraham.
All nations on earth will be blessed because of you.
God still had a plan to show the people just how much he cared for them. He knew this broken world would never be able to rescue itself, so God made a way. God sent his son, Jesus, to bring peace on earth once and for all. Jesus grew up and he taught people love and compassion, forgiveness and grace. He healed the sick and befriended the outcasts. He saw what was wrong and made it right. He loved the world and its people so deeply he gave his life on a cross to pay for the sins of the whole world.
Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing.
In Colossians, the Apostle Paul tells us God made peace through Christ's blood, through his death on the cross. When Jesus chose to give up his life, he paid the cost of every sin ever committed and every sin that had yet to be committed. People no longer had to be separated from God. But in the 3 dark days immediately following Jesus' death, his followers didn't understand all of that yet. They huddled in the dark, afraid that they too might be arrested or even killed.
Who's there?
Early on the morning of the 3rd day, Mary Magdalene arrived at the home where the disciples were staying.
They have taken the Lord out of the tomb. We don't know where they have put him.
The disciples stared at each other in shock. Then, Peter and John lunged for the door. They raced each other all the way back to the tomb where Jesus had been placed.
The tomb really is empty.
There are the linen cloths they wrapped him in.
Peter and John returned home, still uncertain and confused. And Mary Magdalene, who had followed them, stayed behind in the garden. And as she wept, she noticed a man standing nearby. And at first, she thought he was the gardener.
Sir, did you carry Jesus away? Tell me where you put him.
Mary.
The instant the man spoke, Mary Magdalene knew immediately who he was. It was Jesus, alive again.
Teacher!
Overjoyed, Mary returned to the disciples to share the incredible news.
I have seen the Lord!
It was true. Jesus had come back from the dead. He's more powerful than sin, more powerful than death. And through him, we can have peace with God and work toward peace with others as God intended from the very beginning.
Perfect. That was a good video. I think peace is just one of those topics that not always gets talked about.
No, it doesn't.
Right? I can't remember growing up hearing too many stories about peace specifically.
Yeah, now that you say that, yeah.
Right, but I think I think everybody deserves peace, and I think it's not hard to get it. It is quite easy. Jesus had come back from the dead, and he overall is more powerful than both sin and death, and through him we can have peace with God. The bottom line for today is God made peace with us. And because of that peace, we can have a relationship with him that'll last forever. And I think that is so amazing that no matter what we do or anything, he'll always give us that peace and he'll always forgive us.
Pretty lucky.
Yeah, and through that peace, we can work towards having peace with the people around us as well. When you're in those situations where you get angry, you can ask God to give you peace in those situations. And I think that you'll find a lot of the times the situations end up working out better when you have that peace and you take that minute to ask God for a little bit of help. With it being Easter, and all of the chocolate bunnies can take over and outshine the true meaning of Easter. We pray that you remember the peace that God and his son Jesus gave throughout the week. It's not just about the candy or the Easter egg hunts, although those are super great and they're super fun things to do, don't get me wrong. I am super looking forward to doing that with Elliot this year, but that's the meaning. That's why we do it. That's the main reason.
Okay. Well, we love you guys and we miss you a lot, and we can't wait to get together sometime soon, hopefully. But until then, we'll
catch you on the flip side.